All right, so here's the thing. There is a lot going on with the Social Security Administration going forward into July of 2024. Yes, the COLA, cost of living adjustment, is going to begin its calculation 3-month setup for basically July. And yes, Commissioner Martin O'Malley has things moving and grooving at the SSA. A couple of basic things. When we go through this video, I want you to understand that some of the things that are occurring are for the SSA, and some of them are for the beneficiaries. We're going to be talking about lots of things. Things that are pro-claimant, pro-beneficiary, things that are pro-SSA. Some of these things may seem counter at times to your wealth and health, and I totally understand that. But hang in there, keep up, because we're going to go through a lot of things very quickly. As you know, I'm a big fan of Commissioner Martin O'Malley because he came in, grabbed the bull by the horns, and basically led that thing forward to have a lot of new potential option laws and, well, not laws, but, SSA procedures being changed to go ahead and better benefit the actual claimant. We haven't seen that in a while. We did not see that under Commissioner Saul. However, here's the thing when it comes to Commissioner Martin O'Malley, and this is incredibly important to know as we enter into July. He's been in since mid-December. Now, Commissioner Martin O'Malley is pretty much running out of the big news and agency changes that were originally started by Commissioner Kijakazi, who was the prior commissioner to him, Martin O'Malley. Now, Commissioner Kijakazi did a very good job, in my opinion. She did a great job compared to the cluster bleep that she was facing throughout being in office. She set a lot of things up. She got a lot of things rolling, but she didn't get to reap the benefit of their release like Commissioner Martin O'Malley did. Now, with that said, we are in an election year. Commissioner Martin O'Malley is a politician who ran to be president before. He is pro-Democratic Party. He is placed there, tapped there by President Biden. So as a result of that, this is all shaping up. This is all turning into a really strong political joust by the Democratic Party for the Social Security Administration and those recipients to support them. Now, July begins right now. The months where Commissioner O'Malley starts to earn his future presidential points, not dragging off of what Commissioner Kijakazi did previously, but where he gets to earn his true points starts now. He has done an incredible job so far, but he was riding on the coattails of Commissioner Kijakazi, and now going forward, it's his game. So let's see what he comes out with, because ultimately, a lot of these changes, a lot of these updates, he's already wowed us, but now we want to see his innovations really taking off. Number 2 on this item, we have 127 days until election time. So basically 4 months. We could have a war, another catastrophic bacteria, fungus, virus, etc. Anything could happen. But one thing is absolutely certain. Things are really, really quiet right now. If you can afford these things, consider picking them up. Air horn, emergency food, emergency water packets, satellite phone, extra fuel, light lanterns with radio option, extra underwear, and a really good book. If you pew, then pew. Okay. Don't forget the tactical pants. You'll run slower in them, but you will look way cooler. Now, number 3, back to seriousness. Commissioner Martin O'Malley is most likely going to focus his efforts on SSI benefit changes going into the future, because with all the new immigrants coming in and President Biden's focus on voting, you will likely see changes related to the amount per month, limiting rules on resources and earnings, along with fast-tracked SSI opt-in options. Okay, that's going to be a lot of the work we'll see going forward. Diana Fernandez, thank you for the dollar donation. That's absolutely awesome. Love it. Very cool. Let me put a little heart on that. That's very cool. Also, Jessica Pitt, thank you for joining the memberships. That's awesome. Now, some of these things can be achieved internally, right? The changes that Commissioner Martin O'Malley wants to do. They can be achieved internally within the SSA on their own, whereas some of them require Congress to step in. You need the House, you need the senators, you need the president. SSI recipients represent under 8 million people, and it is expected that more than 8 million have passed through the border since Biden took office and began his welding of the doors open on the border. Yes, we all know that unchecked immigration is wrong, illegal, terrible, etc. but the federal government is in control of it. They have control. States don't have control of it. Fed Gov has control of it. States can stay back a little and try and control what's happening with their state, but ultimately federal government has control of it. Now, it's bad for the immigrants and the citizens when there's unchecked immigration. Ultimately, people are asking themselves, why is this being allowed? So there are different levels to things, right? There's where the person didn't know and couldn't have known that this immigration crisis was going on. There's didn't know but might have known, right? There's didn't know but likely should have known. There's didn't know and purposely ignored what was going on. Then there's knew about it and purposely ignored the problem. Then there's knew about it and due to the circumstances was unable to address the issue. Then there's knew about it and with a light hand opened channels for the thing to happen, to flow. Then there's knew about it and made large, sweeping plans to make sure it happened. President Biden and the Kamala Harris team, they knew about this problem and created wide sweeping laws to allow it to happen, which is saying something pretty drastic. Bottom line is that America during the Biden administration was not America, but rather like a geographic land zone that people could enter and leave without using check stations and doors like every prior president during the modern era. So to be fair, this was intentional. Whether you want to call it vote farming or whatever, it was intentional. And it only works to its full benefit if Trump doesn't win. And they can be converted over an 8-year period into naturalized Social Security number carrying citizens, which is absolutely possible because then they can really do a great job with voting. Now, if Trump gets in, the ICE agency for Immigration and Customs is going to be impossibly busy, tracking down likely tens of millions of people. It's almost impossible. It's very tricky, but pretty much almost impossible. So like the success of that is the Trump immigration, we're going to go, it's just not likely. It's just, there's too many individuals now. I don't think Donald Trump can succeed at that immigration policy that he wants to do. Even if they are under new laws without protections, right? Even if they pass new laws that, take away protections that immigrants have. So ultimately, on a smaller July marker timeline, we know that right now, SSI benefits are capable of being paid through the general taxes the middle class mostly pays for. But when you start adding millions and millions of new SSI recipients over the next 4 years, we won't have enough funds for the War Department, along with the multiple other agencies that exist within the federal government. So that's going to be interesting. And here's the reason why. It's going to be interesting considering how much a World War III is likely on the lips of these super, country leaders. So as a result of that, enjoy the 4th of July. As things stand right now, the American flag has not been banned yet as a symbol of prosperity for, somebody other than the immigrants, and their culture. But we keep creeping closer and closer to people being afraid to wear the U.S. flag, which I think is interesting, or even fly them on their property. It's like if you fly it, then you're part of like the MAGA movement. It's weird. It's weird that those two have been tied together. So whether you are part of the burning party or the flying party, just keep in mind immigrant rights are going to likely, basically trump citizens' rights as each 4th of July occurs going into 2025, 2026, 2027, and 2028. So keep in mind, I come from immigrants. Basically it's just father, grandfather, great-grandfather. That's it. That's my cutoff. I'm the third Walter. You reach my great-grandfather, and that's it. You're there. My mother's side is the same thing, basically. Germany they were exterminating the people that I come from, the genetics. So we ended up in America. My family ties to high-level math, Manhattan projects, stuff that involved high IQ options. So we worked because we didn't have roots in America. We got here, we had to work. Point is, immigrant rights were terrible back then. So expect kind of the Latin, Muslim, war-torn Europe, African immigrants to get a lot of benefits going forward. When my family came over, there was no SSI. Like literally, the SSI program didn't exist until the 70s. We were here before that, but not much, but like not much before that. So there was work for food in a box that you would live in, crappy box. And if you betray the U.S. government, you would not go back. Like that's, you just, that was the talk of the immigrant. You just wouldn't go back. You wouldn't be exported. You would just be dealt with. But things evolve. We are going into a different America where minority rights will grow and clash with immigrant rights. I think this is going to happen whether you get Trump or Biden, just in different amounts. The COLA months are officially starting as well. And that's a big thing. Okay, a lot of people don't realize that cost of living adjustment is only calculated off of 3 months, third quarter, and that those 3 months define how much money they're actually going to get as an increase for their benefits, which is why retirement benefits and disability benefits and SSI benefits, that's why it pays so little. Because certain categories can be manipulated during those 3 months, which allow you to have significantly less money each month as an increase for basically surviving on these Social Security programs. It's unfortunately like a cheat that the government gets to use to constantly pay you less. It's not good. Now, the COLA months are officially starting, and they use July, August, and September to calculate the cost of living adjustment. So the government's goal is to give the American people the least amount of increase in Social Security benefits by having the least amount of inflation during those months. The government will always say it is what it is. Capitalism is what it is. It's just going to be what it is. But that is not historically accurate for their actions. So obviously the government would never sell lots of oil to lower the price of it in June to offset the COLA increase in June, August, and September. It wouldn't do that. The government is not going to betray the American people, right, and sell off a bunch of oil in these months to decrease the price of it, especially with an election coming up. Because if they did that, it would be drastically reducing the price of oil in America for a couple of key inflation months, which would mean that they would get to pay you significantly less per month when they do their cost of living adjustment. Now, I'm just saying, I'm not saying the government would ever do this. They couldn't do that. Biden wouldn't do that, right? Okay, so just real quick, Biden sold off nearly 50%. This was in June in preparation for July. I'll just read you the title details. Biden sold off nearly 50% of the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. The article question is that a problem? Okay, so 50% of what we keep in case there's a war was sold in majority to China. The group we potentially have the highest likelihood of having as a real big bad enemy in a World War III scenario. Here's the article, Fortune, Brandon Bell for the image, and then Alicia Adamczyk, Thursday, June 6th. Okay, so this was done last month in preparation to reduce the overall cost of living adjustment for the calculation of oil as part of basically how they do their math for calculating what inflation is over these 3 months. In dozens of underground salt caverns nestled along the Gulf Coast in Texas and Louisiana sits hundreds of millions of barrels of crude oil, America's insurance policy against the volatile nature of the global oil market. Remember, it's not actually like little barrels. It's like giant, actual physical tanks. Okay. I had somebody ask me about that, and they're like, "Does that many little barrels down there?" I'm like, "No, it's the giant big tanks." Yeah. Called the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, or SPR, right? So that's what we keep as America to make sure we can fight wars. It is the world's largest emergency oil supply and dates back to the 1970s when it was created to ensure the U.S.'s future energy independence, ironic, following the Arab oil embargo. At that time, America was dependent on foreign oil, and the embargo led to an energy crisis that crippled and rippled across the U.S. economy and culture, leading to winding lines at gas stations, skyrocketing prices, and calls from then-President Richard Nixon to abstain from driving on Sundays and putting up holiday lights to preserve fuel. The SPR was established to avoid this happening again. But the natural thing is if you sell off a bunch of oil and then it enters into the market, then basically there's a large supply and the demand decreases, which means the price that you can charge for it goes down because there's not as much demand. Cool. As of now, the SPR holds just over 369 million barrels, the lowest level since the early 1980s, and a little more than half of the amount it held during its peak in 2010 and 2011. That's due to the sale of hundreds of millions of barrels authorized by President Joe Biden to try to lower gas prices throughout 2022 after Russia invaded Ukraine and gas prices spiked over $5 per gallon on average. Biden hoped more supply would lead to lower prices at the pump, which worked then, though to what degree is debatable. Now that prices have more or less leveled off, the U.S. Department of Energy is slowly replacing the stockpile, recently buying 3 million barrels to add to that supply. Though Republicans have used the sales as a political talking point, experts say there's little reason for the average American to worry too much about the SPR. Biden is far from the first president to release some of the barrels. Both Republicans and Democrats have done so, particularly after hurricanes or other natural disasters, or even to generate revenue to pay down the national debt or deficit. Any administration, Republican or Democrat, doesn't have a lot of say when it comes to gasoline prices, says AAA spokesperson Andrew Gross. Tapping the reserve the way they did it stopped prices from going a lot higher. It cooled things off a little bit. Then prices started to decline. It got the ball going. But remember, it also massively decreases the inflation numbers that would give you more money going into 2025. Nobody talks about that. That said, Biden sold off the most barrels at one time since the SPR's creation, according to the St. Louis Federal Reserve. As a result, the U.S. currently has enough oil in the reserves to fuel around 20 days of production, plus a commercial inventory. Not an insignificant amount, should something go wrong that necessitates using even more of the supply. When people say, oh no, it's so low, well, what is there for? It's there to help us out, says Gross. It's the nice, friendly aunt in the corner. She doesn't say much, but it is comforting that she is there. In fact, given the U.S. produces significantly more oil than it did when the SPR was established, the country is now a net exporter. Some question whether the reserve is necessary at all or at its current size. A budget proposal from former president and current presidential contender Donald Trump called for selling off half the reserves to pay down some of the nation's debt. As it stands, the reserve is a nice insurance policy, Gross says. And now that crude oil prices have fallen below the government's target price of $79 per barrel, it is likely that further replenishments will be purchased soon. Okay. Now, remember, with this situation, and I'll just finish it off, this could be particularly important ahead of hurricane season. Oh, God. Says Tom Sang, an assistant professor of Texas Christian University's Neely School of Business with over 30 years in the natural gas industry. Any disruption in the Gulf Coast could lead to additional sales from the SPR, depleting it further. We're in good shape, says Sang, but it'd be smart of the DOE to get a long-term contract in place to get it up to a much higher level. All right. So here's my point with this article. And, the main thing that you have to keep in mind with this situation and the problem is that the government, federal government, has ways to manipulate the prices of items that, unfortunately, and remember, this is a 2023 situation and then partially 2024 situation as well. But the point is this: the government can manipulate the products that are measured as part of inflation with cost of living adjustment by manipulating the import of items and what tariffs they put on them, or what barges are available, or what giant tanker boats are available, or what passage they're allowing, or whatever. You have to understand they can shift things. And if you take one of those giant tanker ships and all the items that are coming on it that we use as part of our COLA calculation, if that somehow gets diverted for a bit, and then a chunk of those basically, become not usable anymore, it's going to change the overall effect of basically a market that gauges certain products and the prices that we're willing to pay for them based on our desire to have them, because this whole thing is based off of demand. The more demand, the more we're willing to pay for them. The less demand, right? So the less we're willing to pay for these items. So what happened with this situation is that both Republicans and Democrats are playing a game with something that's incredibly important. And I want to point out why. a lot of the military runs on, diesel, gasoline, different variations of oils, okay, and lubricants, right? That a lot of the lubricants and oils that are used for these engines, transmissions, all sorts of things, right? There's all different kinds of lubricants that go into a vehicle, and we buy a lot of vehicles that need a lot of lubricants because there's a lot of moving parts. Okay, you go to electric vehicles, way less lubricants. Okay, way less. The point though that I'm getting at is that unfortunately the government has a history of doing things in June that ultimately affect July, August, and September. And then October, we hear what the cost of living adjustment is going to actually be. So when somebody comes out, just so that you're aware, and says, there's going to be a COLA adjustment likely of this, they're full of bleep. They don't know. We got to go through July. We got to go through August. We got to go through September. And then they tell us in October. So when you read, it could possibly be this, they don't know. We got to go through those 3 months. They got to calculate it. They let us know in October. So don't waste your time with that until October rolls around. Then you'll know. Then you'll know exactly what's going on. Tony Alexio, thank you for the $5 donation. I'm 62 on SSDI. If I work a part-time, will I get review by their doctor remove SSDI? I mean, if you're working part-time earning over SGA, that's going to trigger, if you're doing it repetitively, a CDR review. So yeah, I mean, that could lead to that for sure. Absolutely could. Furry plants and coins. Remember, Tony, too, real quick, go learn about unsuccessful work attempts or failed work attempts. That might help you in your journey. Furry Plants and Coins, who's been a member for a really long time, who's been a part of the channel for a really long time, which I always appreciate, member for 4 months, which is incredible. Thanks for all you do and all the help you give us. Absolutely, absolutely. Diana Fernandez, another dollar donation, which is awesome. I see a little tractor there, which is cool. If you guys are wondering, I am on the farm, and I'm in the final week of farm work. So this week, I'm going to be doing like the necessities. Like tomorrow I have hearings. I have a private session. You know what that is. It's where somebody pays me to buy an hour, and then they buy out that hour on my hearing schedule. And then I'm working on this veterans claim, which I always enjoy that one. But the bottom line is, I'm doing this, like I have upcoming hearings and I have upcoming hours and I have upcoming claims where there's specific things I want to do. And then extra stuff, I'm not doing it because I'm working on the farm. And it's the final week. It's the final countdown. So with that said, I just want you to understand that I've been watching these COLA figures. I'm going to do another video where I explain products that have a tendency to get a little manipulated here and there so that you can understand specifically some of the issues with it. And you have to understand too, the Republicans and Democrats both do things, and I sit there and I go, what the F are they doing? And what I've realized with this situation is they must hire psychologists, psychiatrists, behavioralists. They must hire these people to figure out how to deliver the news of what they want to do. Because when I read it, at first my brain is like, cool, hey. And then I start thinking about it. I'm like, no, that's horrible. That's a terrible idea. And I've had to pull myself back with a lot of the news that's coming out and ask myself, what are the benefits and the negatives? And when they sell stuff, these politicians are incredible at selling things. A lot of times my brain is just like, yeah, this is awesome. And then I realize, no, this is terrible. And then I go through that whole process of cross-checking the analysis. All right, next thing, now that you understand what's going on with the cost of living adjustment, finally, the trustees report puts the pending doom of the retirement trust fund at around 10 years out. It moved a year back, which is good. That's a very good thing. Some of you are wondering what is being done about it, and can we learn from our history on it? So they came out with this really cool article over here. Lawmakers managed to fix Social Security in the 1980s, but those fixes won't work a second time. This is by marketplace.org, Kimberly Adams, June 28th, 2024. I thought it was an interesting article that I just want to go ahead and read some of the parts to you real quick because I think they did a good job with it. Some of the fixes used in 1983, right? That's when they made retirement benefits shittier, but it made it solvent, right? So some of the fixes used in 1983, like exposing benefits to taxation, were one-time solutions. Congress will have to agree on more ways to increase funding before the 2035 deadline comes around. Okay, so what they're talking about is, and it's a lot of the stuff that the Republicans basically promoted, removing the retirement age out, reducing benefits, all that stuff. Social Security had a similar funding crisis in the early 1980s when the program was within, here's the important part, months of needing to cut benefits before President Ronald Reagan and congressional leaders pulled together a bipartisan commission to save the program. Also, thank you for all the people who gave it a thumbs up. Please remember to like and subscribe. I do enjoy doing these videos, but it helps other people see the videos. Here's the quote. They really did kind of like run up to the very deadline before Social Security was going to run out of money for benefits. So we cut it close to the wire. Nothing like a deadline to create this sense of a crisis, said Jennifer Walter, a professor of political science at the University of Richmond. But in the current political environment, I don't know that we're in that same space, she said. Some of the changes made back in 1983 to fix the program are some of the same ideas being considered right now by the Republican Party. They're not being considered by the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party is, we're not going to change Social Security benefits, which is ironic because everybody thinks the Democratic Party is going to increase benefits, whereas realistically, they're just trying to find a way to tax rich people to continue to pay for the programs as they exist. So like when you see those videos that are like, talking about a stimulus payment boost or a magical, super extra whatever, they're full of fluff. They don't have any extra money. The main argument that they use against Trump is that he spent trillions and trillions passing packages for basically, people to receive money as a result of COVID, people and companies that kept the economy from basically being destroyed, which is ironic because the Democrats were all for those and passing lots of money. And now they're arguing that he spent more than Biden passing those to save the economy. And as I was watching that whole speech come down, I'm like, oh, there's some manipulation going on here. Look at these people. Look at this. Look at this guy doing this. Oh, look at that. And I was amazed. They just, because they'll manipulate the shit out of people. And people don't remember. People's memories in this country are not so good. So, people are like, oh, you spent all this money. Yeah, you spent it. That's how you got your money. That's how you got your stimulus checks. That's how you got your, your unemployment, your reemployment. That's how you got all that money. Like, it wasn't just magic. He spent trillions to basically pay for you to sit at home during COVID. Like, and then Biden's like, he spent so much. I was like, dude, the Democrats, they pushed him into a corner to do it. And he agreed to do it. The Republicans didn't want to spend all that money. Like, remember, they were bitching the whole way. You look at what they're doing, and I'm just like, oh God. And that's the thing is, like, I sit there and laugh because the manipulation's never going to stop. It's just people are falling for it less. But they're so good at it. Like, I've honestly thought about studying the psychology of manipulation, like how to get people to like believe total BS. I've thought about it because there has to be some sort of triggers in the brain. Like, if you ever look at a cereal box, have you ever thought, like, and I've sat there and like looked at these cereal boxes because I have the crap brands and I have like we're trying to be healthy brands, where the healthy brands are like, here's our little blueberry clusters and here's our flakes and blah, blah, blah. And it's like a boring box. Like, I'll buy this because I'm an adult and I think it's going to make me healthy. And then over here, you got like vampires, Count Dracula, and you got like, fruits and, you got toucans and you got all kinds of stuff. And I've just started to realize that, there's a whole sport to this manipulation and marketing. That's what it is. But it's like a step beyond that. It's just full on how to grab that brain and squeeze that logic juice out of it. But anyway, so here's the deal. Some of the changes made back in 1983 to fix the program are some of the same ideas being considered now. They did raise taxes. They did lower benefits by raising the retirement age. And they put Social Security on the path of solvency for decades and decades. Don't add too many decades there because you got the rest of the 80s, 90s, 2000s, 2010s, and then we're here. And, 2020s, 2030. I guess you get some decades there. You got 5-6 decades there. All right. But it literally was within a few months of running out of revenue, said R. Douglas Arnold, professor emeritus at Princeton University and author of the book Fixing Social Security, the Politics of Reform in a Polarized Age. So what you have to understand is that nobody in political power wants to touch Social Security benefits because they're afraid of it. It's not like other stuff. When it comes to food stamps, they can find the money. You know what I mean? They can find the money. But Social Security benefits, that's trillions. That's trillions. They need trillions and trillions and trillions more. There ain't no finding the money on that thing unless we plan out investments and the investments go right. There's just no way. I mean, we can squeeze the middle class more. We can increase. And the middle class is already paying over 15% for all their Medicare, retirement, disability. They're already paying over 15%. Every paycheck just for that. And I think most would agree they don't get enough per month when they get older. If you invest that into stock market, rental, you invest into a rental home, you make millions and millions more. Millions and millions more. Arnold said that he believes the same thing is likely to happen in 2035, that Congress will wait until the last minute to come up with a solution, but pointed out Charles Blahouse, a senior research strategist at the Mercatus Center, a think tank that describes itself as focused on market-oriented ideas. Some of the fixes used in 1983 were one-time solutions. They exposed benefits to income taxation for the first time, which is weird because, why the hell would you pay retirement taxes and then allow the government to tax you if you earn money while receiving your retirement benefits? That's against the interest of the federal government to carrot you onto working more into an older age. It's a dumb shit idea. And they passed it. And they continue with it. And they haven't raised it. You notice that? The whole 25,000, 34,000? They don't raise that. They just going to keep taxing you and tax. Because remember, in 1983, you're earning over 25,000. You were doing pretty darn good. Hey, up. That somebody's lining up to be your spouse. But nowadays, you earn 25,000. You're poverty. You're poverty. That's poverty. They exposed benefits to income taxation for the first time. They brought in all new federal employees to pay payroll taxes into the system for the first time. He said, that's obviously not something we can do again because it's already been done. Yeah, and my generation can't afford it. Think about it. My generation can't afford the retired. We got student loans that are eating us up. If we didn't have student loans, we could probably pay more. We could pay more. Well, our student loans are eating us up. Every month, our account gobbled up. Another difference between then and now is that with baby boomers retiring and birth rates going down, which you all know I made a video on that. I want to make very clear I made a video on that. The number one problem with Social Security benefits surviving, the entire agency surviving into the future, is called fertility rate. And it's not that women screwed up. They didn't. It's that the culture of two people coming together, ironically more so now without alcohol, which, to be fair, alcohol helped create families. I know that sounds terrible. I know that sounds horrible. But it's true. Think about it. If a guy wants to go hit on a woman and he drinks a little and she drinks a little, then he's not approaching her as a nice guy. He's approaching her as a guy who's ready to hit on her because he's got liquid courage. Now, guys don't have that. They approach them, they're like, hi, how are you? I'm a nice person. And she's like, cool, friend zone. It doesn't work anymore. So what happens is they don't get together. There's no, child and child. And now the fertility rate is going to shit. I mean, there was a 3% drop. A 3% drop. And the amazing thing is, with the immigrants, I hope they have a lot of kids and I hope they make a lot of kids because the culture of America is shit. It's shit right now. Everybody's afraid to have a baby because who the hell is going to pay for it? That's why everybody's getting dogs because we can afford that still. Another difference between then and now is that with baby boomers retiring and birth rates going down, there are fewer workers paying into the system than in the past. So the gap between the payroll taxes coming in and the Social Security benefits going out has been widening for years. It's not good. It's not a great look. It's not good. All right. The ratio of working age people to support each retiree is shrinking and shrinking fast. Because remember, it's like, I think it's a 2.7 to 2 right now. 2.7 to 1. There's 2.7 people paying in to one person receiving. And so it places a heavier and heavier burden on each individual working age person, said Jennifer Erkwalter at the University of Richmond. People are living so much longer past retirement than they used to, especially women. Like, if you want it to be like, who's the culprit? And this is the funny part. I had a female argue with me. A woman was arguing with me about how women have it so much harder. And I was like, to be fair, if a draft comes up, women ain't going in on a draft, and they just had a vote on that. The Republicans were like, we're not putting our little girls into the military if there's a draft, blah, blah, blah. And the Democrats were like, shove them in there, just push them all. I'll hold your braids, Equality, get some. So anyways, the point is, just to be fair, there's an interesting thing going on where basically, if we just realize it, okay, what's going on, younger generations, there's not enough of them. They're not having kids. The culture is pro find your identity, which is anti make a family. Right, that's the reality. And you could say, no, it's pro family. You can have 2 lesbians, 2 gay people, 2 transsexual people living together. Okay, cool. And they can adopt children. But there's the problem of the whole, you know what I mean? And yes, they can create kids in the female body converted. Sure, absolutely. But the problem is it's not enough, because we need Little House on the Prairie numbers right now. And just to clarify, I don't think we're going to make it back to Little House on the Prairie. Somewhere over the past 100 years, women got... Okay, so here's my theory, and you guys are going to hate me for this. You're going to hate me for this, but I'm going to give you my theory on this. Just hang with me on it. Don't be mean. Just give me a little bit of a space here. I'm asking for a safe zone, a safe space, if you will, to explain my theory. There are really strong women out there who fought for rights. And then there's women who aren't so strong, that just kind of went along with stuff. And to be fair, they kind of get manipulated through politics. They make choices not on their beliefs of what it should be, but on the emotions of what they would like it to be. I don't like that person because I don't like that person. That kind of stuff. Versus, I believe this is the right direction, and I know that this is what we must do. And you got strong women out there who got the right to vote, the right to have free and equal treatment in the law, except for the things that suck for women. Of course, those have not been converted. They still don't get drafted. And what happened was these strong, incredibly powerful women got these things voted through. And then a lot of those other women didn't really follow suit. And we had this rolling effect where women were getting dragged into an equality that wasn't so good for them. Because when you think about it, America wants women to have lots of kids and wants those kids to basically pay taxes and pay for the retired. That's how the program works. But that's not what we ended up with. We ended up with a lot of stressed women who aren't making enough, who are frustrated, and basically they're like, why would I add this guy to my equation? What does he add? Why would I do that? I mean, there's only a slight tax benefit, And so what's happened now is that we have this new female existence, this new woman in the modern American age. You go back 50 years, totally different gig. You go back 70 years, totally different gig. You go back 90 years, 100 years, totally different gig. Women were in a different state. And the reason why this is so interesting is that if you study a really small amount of time, you go from women that were, providing the household energy and the children so that basically there was a future for America. And they got sold this idea of going into the workplace, making your own money, and being your own boss at home. And now many of them are the only boss at home because, or maybe they have a cat or a dog, because culturally, right, it became too expensive to go ahead and have one man providing for an entire family. So men got screwed over because having a wife at home was an awesome deal, an amazing deal. And women got screwed over because they're really strong, powerful, we can build a family, we can build the future of America. Well, now they're just working like the guys are for very little money. And that's a problem. So, and I was going through this with this one woman about, structurally how that happened and, what is the balance? And the ultimate thing is that the dollar devalued so incredibly quickly that we'll never go back to Americans that are upholding this whole thing. Like the middle class will never go back to having lots of kids because kids are too expensive. So what's ultimately going to completely collapse the Social Security Administration in total is that there won't be enough in the trust funds and there won't be enough people basically being able to afford these taxes to pay for the retired. So it'll collapse. Or they'll go and basically create a division in the SSA that takes those funds and reinvest them into other things. But remember, they don't want to take those funds and take them out of those special bonds that they put them into, because the government uses those special bonds as IOUs, where they take all or most of the Social Security money that's paid in to fund the stuff that they want to do. So when people are like, they took this much money, they always take almost all of the Social Security benefits. They almost always do, to pay for different stuff. And then when those bonds become due, they just print a shitload of money to go ahead and cover it. That's how they do it. So they're always taking the money. It's not like they stole the money. They did one time borrow a chunk of money, but they paid it back in a relatively short period of time. Now, Blahhouse at the Mercatus Center said all these considerations means that unlike in the 1908s, waiting to act until the reserves in the Social Security trust funds are almost spent just isn't an option. And what they're saying here, these super fancy Yale and Mercatus Centers, all that jazz, what they're saying is we can't raise taxes because the people already paying it can't afford it. Now we have both men and women working full-time all the time. So there's no more to squeeze out of them. They can't afford anything more. They got student loans that they can't pay to begin with. So you can't squeeze any more juice out of the working middle class right now. And I know some of you will say, well, tax the rich, make them pay their fair share. Yeah, just if you could, a little bit of reality. The rich ain't never going to pay 15% more on their millions and millions and millions of dollars of income. It ain't never going to happen. If somebody earns $30 million, multiply that by 0.15, that's how much extra taxes that they're going to pay. It's not going to happen. I understand that you want it. It's not going to happen. It's just not. If you wait, here's another quote, till the 2030s, right? Because they're saying 2034, 2035, the whole thing's going to go to shit. If you wait to the 2030s and say, okay, let's try to fix the trust fund at the last minute. Well, you can't do that anymore because by then the annual shortfall is so large that there's no realistic way you could close it, he said. All right, so let me explain what he's actually saying there. Every single month that we don't fix this problem with Social Security benefits, we're losing billions and billions in opportunity to fix it. It literally costs billions and billions, okay? So, which doesn't seem like a big number because we send billions and billions to Ukraine, we send billions and billions to Israel. It doesn't seem Germany, we send it there. We send billions and billions of dollars to countries that really do not need it, okay? So the reality with this, which is quite interesting, is that if you structurally look at this thing, there's no way that we can fix this using what they did in 1983. Because if you tax the middle class more, it'll fail. They're not producing enough children to go ahead and basically make future workers. So if you think about it, it's an interesting thing. 10 years from now, the trust funds run out. If you go back another 8 years from right now, just go back another 8 years, or actually even technically less, because 2035 is 2 more years into the 2024, so it's 1 more year into the future, so 10-year plus. But if you go back basically 18 years from 2035, where it's supposed to all fall apart, you have a working age child, right, reaching 2035, that was never born, that was never created. And that's the problem. We don't have people in the millennial age group and the Gen Z age group actually making babies. And over an 18-year period, you have lost the ability of that child to basically go ahead and make money. Now, here's another thing that a lot of you are not considering. Many individuals go into academia, and they're not earning money, but they're just taking out loans and getting educated. And when they do that, the amount of space and time that they have to work and earn gets reduced because it takes more time to educate them, right? So back in the day, if you had a high school diploma, boom, you go to work. Back in the day after that, if you had a college diploma, boom, you go to work. And back in the day after that, if you had a master's degree, boom, you go to work. And then a doctorate degree, and then a postdoctorate degree, right? The amount of time it takes that person to get ready to do that job is taking longer, which means that we are losing on the front end lots of years where basically a person could go ahead and, start paying taxes into the system with doing a job. Now, with the master's and the doctorate and the postdoctorate, usually they have some sort of quasi job, right? They're doing some part-time thing at a hospital where they have to shadow people. They're doing some sort of thing at a lab, or they're working at some law firm, or they're doing an internship. When I did internships, by the way, you didn't get paid shit. You didn't get paid at all. You showed up and you worked your ass off, and that was it. Okay, nowadays internships you get paid, which hey. With that said, July is an interesting pivotal point for this whole thing. President Biden is relying on Commissioner Martin O'Malley to come out with some real cool changes. President Biden does not have the political reins to change Social Security benefits at a very large level, including the things that increase benefits in a large way. Commissioner Martin O'Malley can change rules that basically reduce the restrictions and increase the benefits through reducing the restrictions that are on them, which is what he's doing. But most of the rule changes, I believe, going forward from this point, because he's used up a lot of the changes that we're going to go through, from the Commissioner Kijikazi era, I think a lot of the changes are going to be very specifically SSI, 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 SSI. Do I think that there will be some growth potential for retirement benefits to have some better rules? Yes, because that's, you're talking, somewhere in the 70 million voter range, right? If you include the people who have combination benefits and stuff like that. President Biden needs as many little groups as he can get, because President Trump is sucking up a lot of the classic biggies, right? President Trump is getting a lot of the white vote. President Trump is getting a lot of the Christian vote. President Trump is getting a lot of the business vote, right? So President Biden has to go over go for a lot of smaller groups. One of them, although it's not that small, is the Social Security group. So it's interesting. I think realistically, so Stephen Watson said postdoctorate degree. So just so you guys know, when you basically get through college, do your 4-year, then you can do a master's, and then you could just go straight to a doctorate. Doctorates have traditional doctorates and then professional doctorates. Traditional doctorates are like PhD, right? Which is just more college. It's not super duper hard. It's just more of what you've already been doing, a little bit higher level. Then you have professional degrees, which are disastrously horrible to experience. Okay, when you go through law school, a part of you dies. Okay, med school, a part of you reaches towards the light and there's nothing there. It's a horrible experience. You are competing against the brightest people capable of getting into those programs, and they are competitive, sneaky snakes, and they will just do horrible things in the competition process. Let me tell you a secret, and this is the final one, and then we're good. I did not know a single person in law school who got into it wanting to, as a child, be a lawyer to represent people. I did not see a single person with that background actually becoming an attorney, because that love of law, wanting to be an attorney from being a child, that emotional connection was not strong enough to make them fight every single day for a spot that would allow them to not get kicked out. I know that sounds crazy, but in law school, after the first semester, a third get kicked out. After the third semester, another third gets kicked out. And then whatever remains goes and takes the bar. And then a percentage of those people pass the bar, and then a percentage just go on rotation and try and pass it year after year. Even though you can take it, I think, I think it's either twice a year or just once a year. It might be once a year. They might have changed it too. It's been a while. So the point is, just to understand, when it comes to those professional doctorate degrees, med school, lawyer, wanting to be that thing as a kid and studying it, those people don't usually make it. And here's why. They learn the field as they're growing up. And this is going to sound horrible. It's going to sound really mean. But most of those people that want to be that person don't have the intellectual capacity to compete against higher IQ individuals that can learn things faster, figure out analysis faster, apply it faster. So even though those kids who wanted to be it their entire life do really well right in the beginning, they get trampled by the second semester and third semester by all the kids that are just way smarter than them. And so what happens is a lot of those kids who wanted to be that thing become hyper bitter, because now they've got all these student loans and they got failed out of the thing that they've been living to become their entire life. So an interesting thing. So anyways, July. The point of this video is to explain that there's going to be some changes upcoming. They will be new. They will not be prior policy, things. There might be a few ones, but it's going to be Commissioner Martin O'Malley's big shot to kind of come up with the most innovative ideas he's got in his back pocket. Do I think he'll pull it off? I think he will, because he's like a one-man war to go ahead and prove that he can fix the Social Security Administration. And if he does truly fix the SSA internally, that is worthy, in my opinion, of earning a spot to run for president and people taking him seriously. Because the SSA is in cluster bleep mode. I mean, you remember the whole 1 million person backlog, longest wait times in the history. It's not a pretty sight internally. Remember, when the commissioner comes out and says, thank you to all the people that stayed with us, what he was really saying is so many people quit that they didn't know how to hire enough people to replace them and then keep them. Remember, they should be operating around 90,000 employees. They're at like 55 to 60,000 employees. It's bad. All right. With that said, and I think Mike Osra made a good comment there. Trade school potentially being better than college. I think the thing with trade school, just to be fair, is that it works better right now. There was a time where it didn't. It's in an upswing. But trade school, the trades, like what you guys see me doing on the farm when it comes to, basically it could be electrical, could be plumbing, could be welding, could be, to some degree, trade school isn't really landscaping, although I'm sure, school hard knocks. The point is, to be fair, it works right now. I don't know if it's going to be the way to go in the future. But I think the benefit of trade school is that people learn how to do things that everybody needs. Like everybody's always going to need an electrician. Everybody's going to always need a plumber. Everybody's going to always need some type of union person to do that thing. They're always going to need that. They're going to need a guy up on the pole, All right. I will catch you guys a little bit later. Please remember to like and subscribe. Head over to Google if you could. I always appreciate it. And type in disability resolution law firm. Throw some stars up there. I always appreciate reading the reviews in the morning. I will catch you a little bit later. If you want to catch me during the live sessions, that's where I take calls for free. On Tuesdays and Thursdays at night, I go live. You call the 407-279-1754 number, and I answer questions for free. If you need me to fix something, where it's like, I don't know what to do with this, or run hearing questions with you and all that jazz, stuff like that, you can hire me for an hour to go ahead and work on some, thing that's going on with your Social Security situation. Today was a person who basically had another law firm, big box firm, one of the biggest big box firms, and basically couldn't get a hold of the attorney, so I ran hearing questions with that person, and it was good. They learned quickly. Sometimes you get people, they can't really grasp things quickly, so you got to repeat. But this individual just was ready, so I always appreciate that. Especially with the veterans. The veterans, they come ready to make it happen, and I always appreciate that. Sometimes they fly off the handle a little bit easily, but they do come prepared to also sometimes fly off the handle, but they do come prepared to get back on the horse, and I always appreciate that. I'll catch you guys a little bit later. You have a wonderful, wonderful night. I will catch you tomorrow during the live session. Please take care of yourself. What state is the farm? And the farm is in New Jersey. So if you guys like farms, and I will have another video shortly, I'm on the Marble Mountain Horse Estate farm. It's the Marble Mountain Horse Estate. It's in New Jersey. It's in the middle of Harmony, which is right next to Phillipsburg and Easton. And there's all these little kids riding around and young adults riding around. And there's tons of horses, ponies, all that jazz. There's a person who rented all the horse stuff. And I'm basically actually here upkeeping the facility, the equine facility area, weed whacking, replacing poles, mowing, etc. And then I'm also preparing this house so that it can be rented, so that my parents can get extra income from the rental of this house as well. So I will catch you guys a little bit later. You have a wonderful, wonderful day, and we will go from there. And please remember to take care of yourself and have a wonderful, wonderful day. Thank you so much. All right. Bye-bye, everybody. Bye-bye.